Hi everyone! Welcome to the first episode of The No More World. Today I'm going to talk about the story of Annaleid, which is me actually. And after thinking about it for a while how to do this, I asked Veronica to interview me and she was happy to do it because interviewing yourself is quite difficult. I can hear you thinking, why The No More World as the title of this podcast? Well, often when I hear stories from ex-elite athletes, I hear them referencing to the normal world as the normal world, because I do see those two worlds myself as two separate worlds. In today's podcast, we're going to dive into the world of elite gymnastics and the transition from the elite gymnastics world to the normal world. Here is the normal world of Annaleid.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, I'm good. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
I have no sports history whatsoever.
Well,
but you have.
I do.
Yeah, let's start with you. This first episode. Can you tell me about your sport history? When did you start? What sport did you do?
Yeah. I started about when I was 5 years old at a local gymnastics club. I believe it was because my mom and dad saw me do cartwheels all around the living room and they thought, well, let's put her in a gymnastics class. And that's how it started. Then, they saw that I was talented, so they said, well, maybe she could go to another group.
So at the beginning, with how many hours did you start?
I think it was just once a week, 1 hour.
Okay.
I believe it was, yeah.
And did it become immediately obvious that you were talented?
Well, I think when I was around 6, I had my first competition and I won. So
well, congratulations! Yeah. Oh wow!
Yeah.
And do you remember that? Do you remember the feeling of winning?
It's very vague, but I do remember a moment that I had to sit on bars. I had to sit with my buttocks on the bars itself, and my teacher had to help me. So immediately I was like, oh, didn't win, but apparently I did.
Oh wow! And did you get a rush out of that?
No, I was 6, so I was like, oh, I have a gold medal, but that was it. Yeah.
Wow, great.
Yeah.
But you did get a rush out of the sport, I assume.
I did, yeah. They saw I was talented, so they put me in a level higher, a class that had a level higher. So I think it was around maybe 2 times a week, 2 hours or something like that. And then at some point, the coaches were like to my mom and dad, well, she's really talented. There is another club nearby where she can train a lot more hours. So we switched clubs, went there. And that was the moment that I also started to do national competitions. And at my first nationals, I became 3rd. I was 9. And then the same thing happened. That club also said, well, we don't have more training hours to offer to you. So I switched clubs again. And that's how I started at the elite club. I ended my elite career. Yeah.
And was that a really a separate world from your normal life, or did your parents know the world, or could they relate to it? Or
yeah, my mom and dad also were active in the gymnastics world. My mom was a coach, not an elite coach, but just to a local club. And my dad also did elite gymnastics when he was younger, and he also taught an elite club. Yes, so they were familiar with the world. And yes, I want to say it's a completely separate world. Separate rules, separate everything. Yeah.
So were you struggling with that at the time, that you to maintain your life in the whole and your life at school or with your friends?
Well, that's difficult because I had to, especially when I went to the elite club, I had to leave school early. So I had to give up a lot of things that normal kids do.
Because it was far away, or?
Yes, it was about half an hour drive. Yes.
Okay.
And my practice started at 4, and our primary school, I think it ended at 3:30. So that was no option. So I had to leave school always a little bit earlier. I missed mornings because of morning practices. So Yeah.
And at that point, did you feel very different from your classmates or from your friends, or were you just more focused on your training anyway?
No, I didn't feel different at the time. No, not really. I just knew that I had a different focus, because my focus was obviously gymnastics, but also performing well at school, just trying to be a normal kid. And I think my parents always tried, obviously to what they could, that I could also enjoy the normal stuff, so birthday parties, etc., up to a certain point. Because, for example, if it was a sleepover party, I couldn't stay because I had to practice that next day. Yeah.
So what did you like about it?
The adrenaline kick when you learn new skills. Yes. I always remember when I learned a new skill and I did it for the first time, I was shaking, like completely shaking, because of the adrenaline. Yeah, it was very nice. Obviously, the skills became more difficult, so also more frightening. But in the beginning, it was the adrenaline. Yes, I loved flipping. I loved running, flying through the air. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. So we're obviously talking about the difference between the world of elite athletes and the normal world. Was that also at that point, was the normal world a little bleak because you didn't have those adrenaline kicks, or was that? I mean, I can imagine it's addictive to have this thrill.
Oh yes, it is, and I think I was participating in the normal world, but I wasn't living in it.
Okay.
I think that's the best way to describe it. Yeah. Until I quit, obviously.
Yeah. So, tell me about the run up. Why was it always gonna happen?
No,
was it your own choice? Was it?
Well, I want to say that I became more frightened for skills, and I got blocks, and it was tough because training hours were tough, and the training was quite harsh.
So how many hours did you train at this point?
I think when I was about 11, I remember training 23 hours a week, I believe, which is quite a lot. You spend quite a lot of time in the gym. And I remember us going to a training camp to start the season. It was in Slovakia. And my parents, after we came back from that training camp, my parents were like, no, it's just not a healthy training environment. I obviously didn't like it anymore. So no, we're just going to quit. So it was, at that time, it was my parents' decision, yes.
So how did you react to that?
At first, I think I was relieved. And after a couple of years, I think, or I don't know, I don't remember it very vividly, but I remember over time that I was like, that goal of the Olympics in 2008, that was obviously the goal. I was in the first national team for like the little ones. So it was the run up to that, and in the years after I quit, I became that realization process started for like I was training for the Olympics, and now I can't get there anymore.
No.
Yeah.
How did you experience the 2008 Olympics? Was that a difficult time?
Yes. Although I don't think I would ever made it to the Olympics, it still was quite weird to watch. Yeah.
It's really, you were in this completely different world now by that time.
Yes. Not understanding it at all. No.
Yeah. So how was it? How was it to adapt to that life without those hours?
Very difficult, because the gymnastics world has a lot of strict rules, and the normal world, as I referenced to it, doesn't have any normal rules. Every person has their own opinion about things, and in the gymnastics world, as how I experienced it, you just couldn't have your own opinion. You just had to listen what you could do. The coaches decided if it was wrong or right. So you didn't have to worry about that. So, and all of a sudden you're thrown in this normal world, and people expect kind of you to have an opinion and to know what's wrong and right, or to have a sort of sense for it. And I just didn't develop that. So
that sounds really chaotic and overwhelming.
Yes. Yeah, it was. And it was at a time that I was going to high school. And obviously that's quite a transition as well. So I think it was just double the chaos for me. Yeah.
So how did you deal with that?
Well, I think I dealt with it by trying to control everything in my power, which eventually became controlling my food intake. And obviously, well, not obviously, but in gymnastics, there is a lot of emphasis on weight. And I think for me, that was how I could control my feelings, not feeling anything, not having to deal with emotions, trying to control the things I could, to make it look like the gymnastics world inside the normal world. Obviously that didn't work, and that wasn't the solution, but and that obviously ended in an eating disorder. Yeah.
So did you get any help with that, or
yeah, after about a couple of years, I was really done with the eating disorder and I wanted it to change, so I got help. First time around, it didn't work that well, so I had to get a second time in rehab, and it was some sort of rehab that I would go once a week, and obviously psychological help. And the second time around, my motivation was that I wanted to be a PE teacher, and for that you have to have the energy and the body and the strength to go through that education. So for me, that was a big motivation to get better. Yeah.
And did you have the feeling that within your mental health team, that they understood where you were coming from, that they had a sense of, obviously not everyone who has an eating disorder has a history within sports, so but it seems like it did contribute. So was there like a huge gap between those worlds, or?
There was understanding for it, because obviously I don't think I was the first retired elite athlete that came to their rehab for help. But at the time, the focus was to get better in terms of eating, and obviously to think better around, like have better positive thoughts around food. But I think in the end, it was more of a symptom, the eating disorder, and not like the real problem that came later. Yeah.
Because you didn't completely dismiss sports altogether. I mean, you wanted to go into physical education.
Yeah.
So what was it that kept you going back?
Because I just love sports. I think it's just the adrenaline and the endorphin that you get from sports. I just love being active. I've always been active. Even before I did gymnastics, we had swimming lessons, of course, and then I did a bit of jazz, the ballet stuff, dance class, and ice skating, speed skating, because I come from a speed skating area in the Netherlands. So I always, and my parents always promoted like sports to us as a positive thing. So once I quit gymnastics, I tried a lot of different other sports. I tried field hockey, track and field, swimming, ballet, but it wasn't it. So yeah. And then when I started my PE education in The Hague, I started gymnastics again.
How was that?
Well, it was weird.
So at what level did you... I can imagine that you were part of the top in the Netherlands when you left, and you obviously couldn't get back at that level.
No.
Or you hadn't grown with your peers. How was that?
It was weird, because in my head I could still do everything. And at the PE education, obviously we did gymnastics too, and I started to notice that, well, I could do some stuff.
You knew how to do a salto.
Yeah, I did. And thing was that back then I was about 19 when I started gymnastics again, because I always, at first I was relieved, and then there became a thought like, what if, and then you go to a gym once and you notice that you could still do all this stuff, even that you didn't think you could do anymore. So then,
like what things? Like,
well, just,
I don't know any technical terms.
No, just giants, just somersaults, twists, double backs, that kind of stuff. It just came very easy still, and I was like, well, after all these years, and I had grown, I had put on some weight because obviously I went through puberty. So yeah, it was quite mesmerizing to me that I was like, well, I can still do all these things, which is also made me very sad because I was like, well, I wish I couldn't, because then I didn't have to worry about this anymore. So
did you feel like an obligation to your talent, or?
Well, maybe I felt like I didn't get everything out of my talent, if you get what I mean. I felt like there was something still there, but so I started doing gymnastics again, not top level, but I think I did 2nd division or something. I don't remember. But then after not even a year, not even a season, I realized that there wasn't any change in the environment. The training environment was still unhealthy, and I felt like I didn't have control over my own life. Obviously, I gained all these knowledge about teaching, about coaching in my education. So it became more clear to me that this wasn't the environment that was going to contribute to my mental health in a positive way. So I quit again. Yeah.
How was your mental health at that point?
I think it was okay. I dealt with for my I felt
by
like
your standards.
Yeah, well, I felt like I dealt with the eating disorder. Of course, you never dealt with it straight away. It just takes a lot of time. But I started seeing a psychologist again because I started having panic attacks. I started having really bad anxiety and also depressed thoughts. And that gradually became worse over the years, to a certain point that when I had a different psychologist, she recommended medicine to me. And that was the point when I started taking medicine for the anxiety and depression, because I couldn't cope with it through my eating disorder. I think I started to cope with it through a different way, which obviously wasn't the solution either, but it was just a huge struggle.
And did your history as an elite athlete at that point, did you have the feeling that was a major factor in those things?
It was a big burden, I think, because I was such a perfectionist. In gymnastics, it's never perfect, so perfectionism is a really big thing. Also, putting the standards for yourself really, really high, expecting a lot from yourself, which is not into perspective to what people expect from themselves in the normal world. So, and that created the anxiety, and also negative thoughts about myself that I didn't do well, I didn't do as I supposed to, while my standards were just really, really high. So at a certain point, I think I went to Amsterdam to a different psychologist, and I'm really happy I found her because she really, really helped me. Ironically, I started gymnastics again.
Can't get away.
No.
Why the third time around? Third time is charm, you were hoping.
I hoped, because I think I just never had the opportunity to step away from the sport on my own terms. It was just because of a negative experience and negative atmosphere, and I felt like I needed to do that in order to completely deal with the situation and be done with it. So
did that work out?
Yeah, it did. I always thought that quitting because of an injury was going to be the worst thing ever. but I quit because of an injury third time around, because I fell on my head during a pack salto on uneven bars and missed the bar completely, and had a whiplash.
Ouch.
Yeah. So that took a while. It took about, I think, a full year to completely recover from it. And at that point, I was like, I had like torn ligaments in my ankles. I had a torn ACL, which was replaced. I had like lots of muscle injuries, and the injury with my head, I came to a sudden realization that I was like, well, they can't replace my brain. So, and I really need it, because at that point I was in uni, I was doing my master's degree, and I was like, I need my brain for the rest of my life, and they can't replace it. And all of a sudden, you're gonna think about life after the sport, and you're like, well, no, I don't wanna do this anymore, because I need my body to be healthy for the rest of my life. Yeah.
Is it also easier to accept the toll it takes on you on a physical level than on a mental level, or is that?
I think so. To a certain point, you can, and that's what they teach you as well, to ignore pain, to ignore emotions, to ignore everything, all the signals your body's giving yourself. That
your mind.
That you need to stop. They teach you to ignore it. So at to a certain point, you can do that. But with mental health, I found that very difficult, because you can't ignore it. No.
Yeah. So would you say that by living in a normal world, you have found ways to accommodate your your sports mindset in that world, or do you feel that you kind of have to let go of that in order to make it work?
No, I think you can use some points, some aspects of it. I think I've learned determination, not giving up easily, and going for, like, if you have a goal, going for it for the full 100% or even more, and having focus to reach that goal, being ambitious. But I think in the normal world you have to lower your standards quite a bit, because otherwise you'll get yourself a burnout. Yeah.
And it's also maybe not as clear what the goal is, as in sports.
True, and that's difficult, because you have to create that goal for yourself. And I think that has been a big struggle for me. What do I want to do? At first I thought it was being a PE teacher. Now I am a data analyst. I've done a master's in sports, so I've done things all over the place. But that goal, that you need to create that yourself, because you need to find out what you like to do and what you think is good to do. And that's difficult, because you've always been told what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And yeah, making that transition is really difficult.
So if you have gone through this transition, so what kind of advice would you give yourself when you just quit first time, second time, third time around?
Well, I think I want to give myself, as a 14-15-year-old, a little bit of advice, and that would be that it's okay to have your own opinion, and
because there wasn't any space for that.
No, there was not space. No space, not at all. No. And I think in terms of body, I would say that it's okay to not have a six-pack.
Good advice.
Yeah, good advice. And it's okay to have emotions and to feel something, because if you can't feel the negative emotions, you also can't feel the positive emotions, and you can't fully embrace life. That's something what I've learned. I still struggle with it, but it's something I've learned over time. And also, if you disappoint someone, it doesn't mean that you get thrown out of their life right away. Whereas I felt like when I did something wrong, or I disappoint my coaches, I would be removed from the gym, and I couldn't.
It's up or out.
Yeah. And that's not how normal life works.
Thank God.
Yes, well, for you, thank God. For me, it's like sometimes I still get anxiety because I get those feelings again, but I start to gain more experience where that situation isn't as it was back in the gym. So I would give that advice to my younger self.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you so much for interviewing me and
Yeah.
helping me with this first episode.
Well, good luck with the podcast. I'm looking forward to all the other stories.
Thank you so much, and yeah. This podcast was created, hosted, edited and produced by Annaleid Bakker. Today's guest host was Veronica Baas and the music is We Are Free by Ixen.